Hi everyone, it's Lacey here and I'm back again for another video. Today's topic is going to be marrying for the wrong reason. So I think that if you're single AF like myself, but really feeling called to the vocation of marriage and really earnestly seeking a partner to share a sacred union with, or if you're engaged, or even if you're already married or thinking of entering into a serious relationship with, of course, the intention of marriage, this video is for you, and I think that you'll find it helpful. So I'm going to briefly cover 10 reasons that I've come up with why I think people marry without pure intentions. Then I'm going to be discussing, how people go about monogamous relationships, right, or monogamous marriages, and some videos that I've seen online. And then finally, I'm going to be talking about some of the reasons that I mentioned, first off, for marrying without pure intentions in more depth. So to give you a list of those 10 reasons, I just want to say that you could, marry for wealth, you could marry for children, you could marry for companionship or to counter loneliness, you could marry for convenience, you could marry for citizenship, you could marry for revenge, you could marry for sex, you could marry for, rescuing someone like white knight syndrome, you could marry because of familial pressure, and you could marry because of peer pressure. So those are 10 reasons that I personally have come up with, for marrying, with impure kind of intentions. And yeah, so that's what I've come up with. Again, I'm going to get into them a little bit in depth later on. But now I just want to address the fact that some people do believe that you can never find the one, right? Some people are of the opinion, yes, there is the one, and that there is one ideal match that you will meet that will make your life so much better, and that you're just going to fit, like the missing piece to a puzzle or something like that. And I mean, I don't know that I personally believe that. I mean, I think that's really beautiful, but I think I'm more of the opinion that you might have a bunch of good matches, right? Potential suitors. And that, any of these would be a good match so long as you came across them, that, there isn't maybe necessarily this one person, the one. But anyway, some people online talk about how, you're going to marry the wrong person, or Hannah Fry in her video called The Mathematics of Love, which was a TED Talk she gave in 2015, basically discusses how you're going to basically marry someone who's suboptimal. And her approach specifically is that you go through a rejection phase, so you reject maybe 37% of people in, kind of the dating game. And then the person that you meet thereafter that is marginally less boring, marginally less dull, marginally less terrible, right, in some ways. So for instance, maybe they're more interesting, maybe they're more caring, maybe they're more ambitious. That's the person that you should marry. And she says that you should do this to avoid kind of being a cat lady, or, being on your own forever, dying alone, all of those sorts of things. So yeah, I found that a very interesting approach. I don't know that I've necessarily adopted that myself, but I do find it interesting. So now to turn to some of the reasons why people marry with impure intentions, I'm going to be discussing one that kind of hits home, which is marriage for revenge. So just a disclaimer, I've never been married before. I have, come close to marriage, but really I haven't ever had a ring on my finger or anything like that. So anyways, I'll get into that probably in another video, but what I do want to discuss is my first ever long-term relationship. And this was actually a very good relationship. He was very supportive, he was very nurturing, he was very caring. But ultimately, at the end of the day, I was very naive. I was kind of a late bloomer. And even though Fry talks about, kind of this average dating range, 15 to 35, I was like, 23 when I came to the dating scene. So I was very much a late bloomer. And, I was just happy to have somebody who cared about me, and I didn't really think in depth about what made a good relationship or what I needed in a partner. I was, again, very naive. But again, that's a topic for another video. So anyway, this relationship ended peacefully. We went our separate ways, but we were on good terms, and the person would call to check up on me once a year to make sure everything was going well. Again, like there was no bad blood there at all. But the person did admit to me that they married for revenge. And luckily for them, it worked out. They fell in love with the person and really have grown and built a strong relationship. But I want this to be a word of caution to some people who are maybe trying to show up, a past partner that broke their heart, or, trying to basically prove to someone, oh, look, I can get a girl. Like I can, live, the high life. I can have this or that. Just don't marry to seek revenge on someone. That's not nice. And it's also very self-destructive. Even though you might think it's hurting the other person, it's actually going to hurt you more, especially if it doesn't work out and it ends disastrously. So yeah, that's one of the reasons why you shouldn't marry. Another reason that I wanted to get into more depth about is actually marrying for sex. So a long time ago now, I went on a date with a Mormon man, and he admitted to me that he married for sex. And obviously he got divorced and then was back on the dating scene. Now, he was very young when he got married, in his early 20s. And in the Mormon church, they kind of encourage youth to go on a mission trip. I think it's around the age of 20, something like that. And then when they return, they marry. So this young man had followed those teachings, had followed that advice, and it didn't end up well for him. So the person he was seeing was switching degrees and this and that. And I can't remember exactly the reason for the divorce, but I mean, we know that he married for the wrong reason. So there's that. There's another reason. Another person that I had a first meeting or date with, as some might call it, a while ago, was a person who was a divorced dad of one. And actually, he admitted to me that he had married to kind of save his partner, to rescue her. And I can't remember exactly what he was trying to rescue her from. But what I do know is that he kind of called himself like the White Knight. And he said that it didn't work out well, and that, his ex-wife ended up going for somebody a lot younger and then was addicted to being pregnant, whatnot. And so, he just had a kind of tumultuous relationship. And so that's another reason why not to marry, just because you think you're going to save someone, right, from something, or that you're going to be their saving grace. Like, you have to be careful about getting into that sort of a position. So anyways, that's another reason. And yet another reason that has really crossed my mind, and I think it hits closer to home for a lot of people than some may think. And it's kind of marrying for children. So I think this is really relevant to women who are kind of a certain age, especially like mid-20s, mid to late 20s, early 30s. I think that women can put themselves in a very dangerous position where they're ready to compromise on a meaningful relationship in favor of children. And actually, a friend of mine was kind enough to share her story and talked about how she married the first time for children, and it didn't end up well. She ended up hurting not only her children, but, those around her, her ex-husband, extended family, that sort of thing, and that it was not a good move. And so I just asked her to share some insights and, what advice she would offer to women who are in this position. And she said, be strong enough to allow yourself to live alone and build the life you love. Don't live in fear of what if, just live the life God calls you to live. And I think that's a very noble statement, just because so many of us feel like we want to forge relationships. And I think in my first video, I talk about kind of finding love as opposed to forcing love. And that's something I strongly believe is that, I think at some point we've all tried to forge a relationship and we've known it's not right, but we just want so badly to have, all of those things, companionship, somebody to go out and do things with, somebody to see movies with, somebody to, go to festivals with and concerts with, and somebody to eat dinner with, right? Or, we want children and we think, I've got to get going. I'm of this age, I need to get into a relationship. It doesn't really matter so long as he's a man, So I think that this thinking is very detrimental, and basically it's hard, right, to know what you're called to do. But I think that your intuition is a gift from God, and if you're not entirely at peace, that's a sign that you shouldn't pursue something. And if your conscience is telling you, oh, I know why I'm really doing this, and it's not for love, then I think that you should not, go down that path. And yeah, so the person also said that they kind of missed out on some things in their life, they had some different career aspirations that they weren't able to pursue. And, their selfish actions definitely had consequences. So I want to leave that there, but basically these are some reasons why you shouldn't marry. I definitely don't recommend doing any of these things. But if you want to share your story, if you've been, in a relationship where you felt, you weren't with the person for the right reasons, or you married for the wrong reasons and you feel comfortable talking about that, or, you came close to marrying someone for the wrong reasons, I would love to hear, your story. Please comment below. And until next time, farewell. Bye.